South African students who are taken abroad to qualify as doctors say they've been waiting for over a year to write a crucial board exam. They protested yesterday in Pretoria, taking their issue to the Health Professions Council, which they say has not acted with urgency to address their grievances. Now, one of the doctors we spoke to here on the program last night was Mametja, who says that this has been a mental roller coaster for her.
Basically, my life changed from jubilations to sorrow, because 2016, when I left the country, I felt that I just didn't go for myself. I went to Russia for my family. I went for the community of Bethlehem in the Free State where I come from, and South Africa as a whole. And now I'm literally stuck with a qualification in the wardrobe that I can't use because of the HPCSA. Because I believe that the Health Professional Council knows about foreign-trained medical doctors, and they should set like 2 dates in a year, making sure that there's no backlog. Because myself, I graduated last year in 2022, but there are people who graduated in 2021, people who graduated in 2020 who are still waiting for these board exams. So it really feels like we are being treated as foreigners just because we are foreign trained. President Cyril Ramaphosa, we urge him to intervene, because it's ridiculous with the shortage of doctors in South Africa. One colleague of mine actually mentioned that there's a ratio of one to 1,000 patients, one doctor to 1,000 patients, which is ridiculous. And some of us are just sitting at home with qualifications that are verified. We did not go to fly-by-night medical universities.
Let's get comment on this issue then from the Health Professions Council of South Africa's Dr. David Mametja, who's with us tonight in studio on News at Prime. A very good evening to you, Doctor. Thank you so much for coming in. So what exactly is the hold-up with these board exams? Why have these young people not been able to take them?
Well, firstly, thank you for giving us the opportunity. I think it helps that our side of the story is also heard. There is a context to this, so it's not just a simple and linear matter of board exams not being provided. You know that foreign qualified applicants would have tried to get trained in South Africa, and they would have been denied access to our South African universities. Primarily because maybe there isn't adequate capacity within those institutions. And secondly, that maybe they didn't meet the requirements of those universities to study medicine in South Africa. And then they would go overseas, mainly China and Russia, as you've heard. So on their return, the HPCSA has to satisfy itself that they have attained training that will make them to be competent practitioners once they are admitted into practice. Now, that is a fairly lengthy process. It starts with, there are very stated requirements and particulars that have to be met, like the duration of the training that the person will have had abroad, and secondly, that they've covered skills areas that are considered as relevant for practicing medicine in South Africa. Child health, maternal health, mental health. So on their return, there is a lengthy process of making those assessments to establish that indeed they are competent. And the board exam is just the tail end of it. And now, the exams are actually offered by a service provider, usually a medical university.
Is this Sefako Makgato?
Yes, Sefako Makgato is the institution that we had until the 31st of March 2023. But ahead of that, we had started a process to secure a replacement institution using our existing supply chain management processes. And we're just unlucky that we didn't get a very good response. Only one institution expressed interest, And even that institution did not meet the requirements for managing the exams. So we had to do a follow-up, and this time we approached all the institutions that had medical schools to step in and assist. And again, only that one institution responded. And
so now, I get that, right? So it's a long process. There's a lot that has to be done. Are you saying tonight that everyone who was at the march yesterday has basically not been able to take the board exam because A, there was a problem with them meeting criteria relevant for processes here at home, and B, where are we actually with getting the issue of the board exams going? Because while it comes at the tail end, without that, they actually cannot begin any sort of training or placement.
Yes. In some instances, the applicants would not have provided us with the necessary documentary evidence that is needed to assess if the training platforms that they were in produced or gave them, competent skills that will enable them to function as doctors. So, and if those documents continue to be outstanding, as is the case for quite a number of them, then their applications will not be processed. And I think those are the ones that would have said we have been waiting for periods longer than a year. But the truth is, as far as the current situation is concerned, it's the issue of the service provider, where our supply chain management could not agree or allow for the institution that had applied to take on the responsibility. But how are we dealing with this? We had to get what is called a deviation from our governing council, which allowed us to bypass our supply chain management processes and enabled us to engage with the institution directly so that we could make them to be compliant to take up this
So what is the ratio, Doctor, of people who've not had help because they've got outstanding documentation, you brought that up, and those who have not made any progress because there's a problem on your end, simply because there are delays, there was a backlog, and the fact that as things stand, there's no real service provider who's willing to take them on?
Yeah, you see, so we register normally new applicants, and I'm talking about new applicants, every year between 4,000 and 5,000 who seek registration as medical doctors. The foreign qualified normally constitute between 200 and 400 applicants. So in as much as, and I don't want to belittle this, the large number of applications that we receive are actually processed. And it's only this grouping that we struggle with, because they don't get automatic registration when they return after training. The HPCSA. No, they can't, because we have to be assured that once you are given that license, you will be able to practice, and because of your responsibility to protect the public.
What's the number of those, Doctor, who have not made progress or are still sitting at home because they've not submitted documentation, and how many are sitting at home because of problems on your end?
Yes, so the number is about 300, including the new applications that came during the course of this year. And I think those will constitute the bulk of the applicants. So again, just to put this in proper context, it's of course, every applicant who comes to us must be assisted, but we are able to assist quite a larger number of applications or applicants that we receive. But we understand, the pain that they go through.
They feel like you're treating them like second-rate citizens because they studied abroad. And the doctor we spoke to last night was saying it's painful because they went abroad on government bursaries. So the South African government sent them there, yet that very thing is now such an obstacle to them building the lives they thought they would and helping a public service that actually needs doctors.
And we understand that, but as I'm saying, our responsibility is not to fund applicants to go abroad. Our responsibility is to say, you've trained, and you have acquired the necessary skills and competencies.
But you're not doing well at that if people are sitting at home for a year, 2 years.
Yes, but I've tried to explain, Tembekile, that in some instances, it's because of incomplete submissions.
Yes, but not all the cases.
Yeah, not in all the cases. The only difference this year is the challenges that we had.
But at the point that the Swakomagatu contract came to an end, which is at the end of March, as you say, there were already people sitting at home waiting.
Yes.
So I know of people in the Free State, for example, who were taken to study. I think they've studied in Turkey, some of them, who are still waiting. They've been back in the country since the beginning of the pandemic, for example. So what about them?
It is a protracted process, as I indicated. I mean, they study in foreign languages, whether it's Russian or Mandarin. And all of those documents have to be translated, notarized, and fully submitted for review by a relevant structure.
So why does it take so long? Are you not equipped to do this work and do it efficiently?
Yes, the challenge I think that we have experienced this year is with the inability to get...
well, it's not this year. It goes back several years.
Well, you might make reference to several years, but I'm just telling you what the challenge is that we experience as a result of the process that they have to follow.
This board exam, so now have you locked in a service provider who will be able to administer the exam?
We are on the verge of locking a service provider. In fact, tomorrow we have a meeting with the identified service provider, and we believe that the contract will be finalized, and we should be able to announce a date during which the exams will be written.
Before the end of the year?
Before the end of the year. Indeed.
What capacity will the service provider have? How many will they be able to take on? Because the other issue is with a growing number, there's growing impatience, and all of them want to be first in.
Yes, those are the details that we are working out with the service provider. We have already indicated the backlog that we have, and it will not be just a matter of offering a single exam, but we might have to offer several exams so that we can be able to clear the backlog.
Can you do hundreds at a time?
We can do 200 up to 300 at a time, I think.
That's what, in a day?
In a single exam sitting, indeed.
And then what is the total number of people who now would need to take this exam, who you would want to take through the process before this year has lapsed?
About 400, 500, that's the total number that we'll need to clear from the backlog.
So one of the questions that they had for you, the medical student, was this. Why are Cuban-trained doctors, they were asking, prioritized over doctors from BRICS countries, BRICS partner countries such as Russia, for example, in terms of being registered into the system? How would you deal with that?
The Cuban doctors have come through a completely different process. It's based on what we call a government-to-government agreement, which means South Africa had entered into an agreement with the government of Cuba. And prior to South Africans going to study in Cuba, there were a lot of assessments that had to be conducted to ascertain both the government, but most importantly, the Health Professions Council as a regulator, that those institutions in Cuba will be able to provide the level of competencies that are needed in South Africa. So the requirements and the arrangements for the Cuban-trained applicants are different to the group that we are talking about. And of course, with this group, we don't have similar arrangements as in government-to-government agreements.
But ultimately, Mr. Mametja, what it comes down to is that the HPCSA has failed these young people.
Well, the HPCSA has had challenges.
It's failed.
And we acknowledge those.
You failed.
That's your view, but I've tried to give you an
hundreds of young people say they've been back in the country for a year, almost 2 years, and you know what process they're supposed to undergo, yet they've not been taken through a smooth process that you're familiar with, that's set out. That is a failure, because you shouldn't all be shooting in the dark. You know what to do, but you've not done it.
I fully understand. I mean, ideally, even for us.
So it's a failure.
No, hang on. Ideally, even for us, we would like to have everybody cleared. But I've tried to indicate to you that the process doesn't start with board exams. It goes further back.
And even there, it's a mess. By your own admission.
No. It's not our mess, because it's the applicants that are required to provide that documentary evidence.
And what do you do when they don't give you the documents?
Well,
what is done? And how soon do you action that?
If they don't give the documents, then it makes their applications not to be compliant.
For a year?
Yeah,
if someone is waiting a year, why does it take a year to get these documents?
Listen, the rules are that you have to submit this list of documents. And once you have submitted that list of documents, then your application will be fully processed.
Does it have to take a year?
If they are taking a year to make those documents available, then it will take a year. But the other thing is...
Why do they take a year?
I don't know. I think there are just challenges with getting their institutions to give them these documents on time, the curricula, the training programs, and make assessments. Like if we say, at a minimum, you should have trained for 5,500 hours, that technical job of making that assessment and also having these documents to be translated from whatever language they trained into English. It takes time as well. And the documents also have to be made legitimate by notarization. So that's where I think, unfortunately for them, they are experiencing a lot of challenges.
Plus the failure on your side.
Well, I mean, you call it a failure, but I've explained.
All of you are failing them.
I've explained the circumstances that we face, especially when it comes to what has happened this year, with the challenges of a service provider who was not meeting our requirements to administer and manage these examinations on behalf of the HPCSA. But
you're now going to meet?
We're meeting tomorrow, but we're also looking at the future in terms of a different arrangement.
The system needs to change. It sounds to me the system is broken and that needs to change fundamentally.
Yeah, maybe instead of having just one single service provider, that maybe we engage all the medical institutions and enter into agreements with them so that they can share this burden of administering the examinations on behalf of the HPCSA, and that will also improve access, because now you don't have to go to a single institution. You can go to multiple institutions.
But how many administrative hoops would you have to jump through to get that to happen?
Well, yes. I mean, the concept has to be developed. We have to really get into the details of it, and then we have to explore with relevant stakeholders, including the medical schools themselves.
Sounds like it will take years.
Well, not years. But anyway, after those inputs have been made, then that information needs to be packaged in a manner that will enable the relevant board, which is the Medical and Dental Professions Board, as well as the council, to allow for that kind of an arrangement to be made. But that's the future. But what's immediate is ensuring that the service provider is in place, and these applicants are assisted to sit for board exams.
Mr. Mametja, as we conclude, if we get to the end of the year, you say you want to get these exams going before the end of the year.
Yes.
If we get to the 31st of December and you haven't got this process rolling, what do we do with the HPCSA then?
Well, my boss, Dr. Masike, always says, his head will roll, or his neck will be put on the chopper. He said he'll start with mine first. So I mean, there is a real determination to get this sorted out before the 31st of December.
Mr. David Mametja, a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.